Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something that, well, it touches every part of our lives: healthy relationships.
hmm
Now, we all know that healthy isn't some simple checklist. It can feel complex, maybe even a little like trying to nail jelly to a wall sometimes.
It really can.
Yeah,
What makes one connection thrive might look quite different for another, and figuring out the essential elements isn't always easy.
exactly. So, our mission today is to sort of cut through some of that confusion. We've taken a close look at a range of advice from relationship experts,
Right.
articles from health and relationship websites, drawing on wisdom from psychotherapists, relationship coaches.
Good sources.
Yeah, to really dig down and find those core principles. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding the fundamental building blocks of strong, lasting connections, all tailored to give you, our listener, a clear, thorough grasp without feeling like you're drowning in info.
That's good.
Okay, so let's unpack this. When we
Uh,
talk about the absolute bedrock, what's the very foundation of a healthy relationship?
well, according to registered psychotherapist Natasha Duke, a healthy relationship,
Yeah.
at its core, it's built on elements like empathy,
Okay.
that ability to understand and share feelings. Then there's kindness, just showing warmth, consideration, reliability, being consistent, dependable.
Crucial.
Absolutely. Commitment, the shared dedication, mutual respect for boundaries, valuing each other's limits, teamwork working together, and having similar values and goals.
Similar values and goals. That last one feels pretty big. If you're fundamentally wanting different things out of life, that could create some serious headwinds.
There certainly can be a significant factor, yeah.
Yeah,
When you're generally aligned on the big picture stuff, it tends to create this sort of natural synergy. It supports the other elements.
makes sense.
And Duke also highlights the crucial role of self-reflection, not just when you start a relationship, but like as an ongoing practice.
Right, that constant check-in with yourself, because we're always evolving, aren't we?
We are.
And that self-awareness must then inform how we show up in the relationship.
Absolutely. She emphasizes that even in long-term relationships, keeping that habit of self-reflection is vital. It lets individuals learn from past, hiccups
Yeah.
and navigate future challenges together in a way that feels safe, productive for both partners. As Duke puts it, difficulties are, well, they're inevitable,
Sure.
but it's how you navigate those choppy waters together that truly defines the relationship's health.
Yeah.
People in healthy relationships should feel, at ease with each other, be willing to put in the effort to grow together, and always treat each other with respect.
So a solid base of shared direction, yeah, coupled with a commitment to navigate those inevitable bumps with kindness and respect makes perfect sense. Now, let's delve into something that feels absolutely non-negotiable.
Trust. Ah, trust.
Yeah.
Yes. Indeed, the very foundation upon which healthy relationships are built, whether we're talking romantic partnerships or, strong friendships.
Right.
Abigail P. from USU Extension offers a really insightful breakdown. She outlines 8 essential components for building and maintaining this crucial element.
8. Okay, I'm all ears. What are the key ingredients for baking up some serious trust? Lay 'em on us.
Okay, first, open communication. Expressing your thoughts, your feelings honestly, but also really listening when your partner does the same.
Okay, listening. Got it.
Second, consistency and reliability. Basically, your actions match your words, you follow through.
Walk the talk.
Exactly.
Mm.
Third is transparency, being open about your life, avoiding, unnecessary secrecy.
Makes sense.
Fourth, demonstrating empathy, showing genuine understanding and care for their emotional world. Fifth, setting and respecting boundaries, clearly communicating your needs and being mindful of theirs.
Boundaries, yeah. We'll come back to those, I bet.
We will.
Yeah.
Sixth, the capacity to apologize and forgive, taking responsibility, letting go of past hurts. Seventh, being dependable in times of need, offering support when they need it most.
Being there.
And finally, eighth, vulnerability, allowing yourself to be open, authentic, even when it feels a bit risky.
Wow, okay. When you lay it out like that, you really see trust isn't just this one, abstract thing. It's like a tapestry woven from all these different threads of
Yeah.
behavior.
That's a great way to put it.
It's almost like a constant series of small actions that either build it up or, chip away at it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And as Natasha Duke also mentioned, navigating tough times together actually serves to strengthen trust. Every time you work through a challenge, relying on those 8 components Abigail outlined,
Mm-hmm.
that foundation becomes more resilient. It's like saying, look, we've got this, even when things get hard.
Okay, so trust is the foundation. What's the crucial element that lets that foundation actually like function and grow,
Yeah.
it has to be communication, right? It's how we actually live in the relationship day to day.
Absolutely. The Better Health Channel emphasizes that communication goes so much deeper than just, exchanging words.
Yeah.
At its heart, it's about truly understanding and feeling understood by your partner.
Understanding and being understood. Okay.
It's a dynamic, two-way process. Each person brings their own style, their own needs, and finding a way to connect that works for both of you, well, that takes conscious effort, ongoing practice.
So when we talk about good communication, what does that actually look like in our day-to-day interactions?
Well, several key aspects are vital. Firstly, clear communication starts with active listening, making a real effort to understand not just the words, but the underlying intentions, feelings, needs.
The stuff behind the words.
Exactly. It also means expressing your own needs and emotions clearly, directly, often using I statements helps take ownership. So saying, I feel worried when, instead of, you always make me anxious.
Less blamey.
Right. Creating dedicated time to talk without distractions, putting away phones, turning off the TV, that's incredibly important too.
And divided attention.
Yeah. And it's crucial to regularly check for understanding. Don't assume you know what they meant. Ask clarifying questions. Make sure the message landed right.
And it's not all about navigating problems, is it? I think the Better Health Channel also mentions sharing positive feelings, expressing appreciation.
Absolutely. Regularly expressing appreciation, admiration, acknowledging the value your partner brings, that significantly strengthens the emotional connection.
Yeah, the good stuff matters too.
Definitely. Plus, being really mindful of your tone of voice is key. Even if your words are neutral, a sharp or dismissive tone can just completely derail things, make your partner feel unheard, attacked.
Oh, tone is huge.
And the Cleveland Clinic adds another crucial element: being able to agree to disagree respectfully.
Ah, yes. Not always easy.
No, but vital. And the immense value of finding middle ground through compromise. You just won't always see eye to eye, but finding mutually acceptable solutions is essential for long-term harmony.
Okay, so clear, active listening, expressing needs constructively, focusing on genuine understanding, and knowing when and how to find that middle ground. That sounds like a solid strategy for maybe sidestepping a lot of unnecessary conflict.
It definitely helps.
But let's be real, disagreements are still part of the package in any close relationship. How do healthy relationships navigate those inevitable conflicts?
That's a really important point. Helpguide.org rightly points out that conflict is normal. Frankly, it's unavoidable in any healthy relationship.
Right, it's not about if, but how.
Exactly. The key isn't to try and sweep disagreements under the rug, but to develop the skills to resolve them in a way that actually strengthens the bond rather than fracturing it.
Okay.
They explain that conflicts often stem from perceived threats to our needs, our values, our sense of self.
Feels personal sometimes.
It does. And they tend to escalate when they're ignored or avoided. Our individual responses to conflict are deeply rooted in our personal perceptions, which are, heavily influenced by past experiences, culture, values, core beliefs.
It's often during these moments of tension that the real differences between, say, healthy and unhealthy relationship patterns become crystal clear.
Precisely. Helpguide.org draws a stark contrast. Unhealthy responses might be an inability to recognize or validate the other person's needs.
Dismissive.
Or explosive emotional reactions, using threats, withdrawing affection as punishment, holding grudges.
Oof, not good.
Definitely not. Compared with healthy responses, which include showing empathy for your partner's perspective, staying calm and respectful, being willing to forgive, and committing to finding a solution through compromise.
Okay.
What's really insightful here is that successfully navigating conflict actually creates this powerful opportunity for growth within the relationship. It builds deeper trust, a stronger sense of security.
So knowing you can weather disagreements reinforces the bond.
Exactly. It says we can handle this together.
So it's about shifting our mindset around conflict then, seeing it not as a personal attack or a battle to win, but as like a challenge to overcome together as a team.
That's a great way to frame it.
What are some practical skills that can help us do that, in the heat of the moment?
Well, helpguide.org emphasizes the critical importance of managing our own stress and intense emotions during conflict.
Easier said than done sometime.
Oh, absolutely. But it involves consciously trying to stay calm, actively controlling impulsive behaviors.
Deep breaths.
Yes. Paying close attention to our own internal feelings as they bubble up, and consistently respecting our partner's perspective, even when we disagree.
Okay.
They highlight two core skills that are particularly valuable: developing techniques for quick stress relief in the moment when tensions are high.
Like taking a break.
Could be. Or just a few deep breaths, like you said. And cultivating emotional awareness, becoming comfortable enough with our own emotions to respond constructively, rather than just reacting impulsively, even when we feel threatened or attacked.
Knowing your triggers.
Yes. Paying close attention to nonverbal cues, yours and your partner's, is also vital. Making sure your body language aligns with your words.
Right. Crossed arms while saying I'm open to discussion doesn't really work.
Not so much. And while humor can be a fantastic tool for diffusing tension,
Use with caution.
definitely, it's absolutely crucial to laugh with someone, not at them. Sarcasm or mockery can just pour fuel on the fire.
Good point. So, managing stress in the middle of a heated discussion, that sounds like a superpower. And having that deeper awareness of your own emotional state so you're not just operating on pure reflex, these are definitely skills worth actively developing.
For sure.
Now, let's talk about a specific approach to communication that's gained a lot of traction. Nonviolent communication, or NVC.
NVC, developed by Marshall Rosenberg. It offers a really practical, structured approach for fostering more compassionate, understanding exchanges. Very well. Mine breaks it down into 4 key components.
Okay, lay them out for us. What are the core elements of NVC?
First, observations. This means describing the objective, factual elements of the situation without layering in any judgment or evaluation.
Oh, the facts.
Right. For example, instead of saying you're always so inconsiderate, which is pure judgment, you could try, I noticed that when I was sharing about my day last night, you were looking at your phone and didn't respond to what I said, as a factual observation.
Okay, less accusatory.
Exactly. Second, feelings. This step is about identifying and clearly owning your emotions in relation to that observation, saying, I feel, and naming the specific feeling rather than blaming. So instead of, you make me feel ignored, maybe I felt a little dismissed when that happened.
Taking ownership. Got it.
Third, needs. Identifying the underlying human needs connected to those feelings. What value wasn't being met? In our example, the need might be for connection, or maybe to feel heard.
Okay, finding the root.
And fourth, requests. Making clear, specific, doable requests based on those identified needs, not demands, not vague suggestions. So instead of, you never listen to me, a better MVC request might be, could we agree that when one of us is sharing something important, we put our phones away for a few minutes? I'd really appreciate feeling like I have your undivided attention.
That shift from judgment and blame to focusing on objective observations and clearly stating your underlying needs, that feels really significant.
It is.
It totally changes the dynamic. Takes a lot of the defensiveness out of it, I imagine.
It really can.
Yeah.
Very well. Mind underscores the importance of listening to your partner with empathy, without interrupting.
Hard sometimes.
It is pausing before you respond, letting yourself process your emotions, consciously avoiding blame, and consistently using those I statements we talked about.
Right.
The potential benefits of using NVC are pretty substantial. Deeper self-awareness, greater honesty, intimacy, more intentional communication, less conflict overall, and just more compassion and understanding for both of you.
It really sounds like NVC is an incredibly valuable toolkit for building stronger connections and fostering more understanding. Okay, let's move on to another crucial aspect, one that sometimes gets overlooked but is absolutely fundamental: boundaries.
Boundaries, yes. Helpguide.org defines them as those essential guidelines we establish in relationships to protect our own well-being, encourage our sense of autonomy.
Our own space.
Exactly. They set clear expectations for how we want to be treated and ultimately ensure our own comfort and safety. They're not about building walls to keep people out, but more like defining the limits of what feels acceptable and respectful for you in that relationship.
And it's so important to remember they aren't one size fits all, are they? There's a whole spectrum of different types.
Precisely. Helpguide.org outlines several key types. There are physical boundaries relating to your personal space, comfort with touch,
Okay.
sexual boundaries involving consent, respect, comfort levels with intimacy, emotional boundaries about protecting your emotional well-being, not taking on everyone else's feelings.
Preventing emotional dumping.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Material or financial boundaries concerning possessions, money, lending, borrowing, and time boundaries, helping you manage your schedule, energy, priorities.
That last one feels really relevant today. Time is precious.
It is. And what's really important to understand is that these boundaries aren't rigid, set in stone. They can shift, they often do shift, as relationships evolve over time, especially in long-term partnerships, which means ongoing open communication about them is necessary.
Right. And there's a pretty clear distinction between what healthy boundaries look like versus unhealthy ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries tend to be flexible. They adapt appropriately to different situations, different relationships. Unhealthy boundaries, on the other hand, can be excessively rigid, creating emotional distance, even with loved ones.
Like a wall.
Or they can be overly porous,
Mm.
making it hard for you to say no, leading to feeling drained, resentful, taken advantage of.
In there.
Yeah. Factors like being overly agreeable or struggling with low self-esteem can sometimes contribute to having weak or porous boundaries.
So how do we actually do it? How do we set these crucial boundaries? It can feel a little awkward, maybe even confrontational sometimes.
It can feel that way. HelpGuide.org offers some really practical advice. First, you need to clearly understand your own needs, values, limits. Do some self-reflection. What makes you feel comfortable, respected, safe?
Know thyself.
Exactly.
Yes.
Second, communicate your boundaries clearly and directly. Choose a good time and place. Use clear, assertive language. Be prepared to address questions or feedback your partner might have.
Okay.
Third, and this is absolutely key, you must be prepared to enforce your boundaries. This means having clear, reasonable consequences in mind for when they're crossed
Consequences.
and being willing to consistently follow through. It's also really important to remember it's a two-way street. You also need to know how to respond respectfully when others set boundaries with you.
How so?
Well, accepting their limits, engaging in open communication if you need clarification, and offering an apology if you realize you've overstepped.
Setting boundaries sounds like a really vital act of self-respect that ultimately makes the relationship healthier for everyone. Okay. Now let's consider those times when, despite our best efforts, things go wrong. Hurt happens, which naturally leads us to forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Yes.
Yes. Psyche Guides explains it as fundamentally about the conscious, intentional act of releasing feelings of resentment, anger, the desire for revenge towards someone who's harmed you,
Letting go.
essentially. It's important to differentiate between interpersonal forgiveness, which might involve reconciliation, might not, and intrapersonal forgiveness. That's the process of letting go of negative feelings for your own well-being, even if the relationship can't or shouldn't be repaired.
So it's for you, not necessarily for them.
Exactly. What's really significant is that forgiveness is ultimately a choice you make for yourself. It's possible even if the other person doesn't express remorse or even acknowledge the hurt.
Wow.
The act of forgiving can have profound benefits for your overall mental and emotional health. It lightens the burden of carrying those negative emotions.
Because holding on to resentment and anger can be incredibly draining, right? Emotionally, even physically.
Absolutely. Richard S. Balkin from Psyche Guides emphasizes that carrying that heavy emotional baggage consumes significant energy. It can have long-term negative impacts on both mental and physical well-being.
Yeah, I could see that.
Even in situations where reconciliation isn't possible or healthy, just letting go of those negative feelings can be incredibly liberating. It allows you to move forward in a healthier way.
So how do we actually navigate this process? It's often difficult. It's certainly not like flipping a switch.
No, definitely not. Balkin outlines several steps based on something called the forgiveness reconciliation model. It often begins with collaboratively exploring the situation. Maybe talking it through with a trusted friend, a therapist, to gain clarity on your experience and the impact.
Getting perspective.
Yes. Then, you might consider if reconciliation would be helpful or realistic, carefully weighing factors like their willingness to acknowledge their actions, their genuine inclination to change.
If they're truly sorry and trying.
Right. If you do choose to pursue reconciliation, openly sharing your positive feelings, your hopes for the future, can be an important step. If reconciliation isn't the path,
Which sometimes it isn't.
correct, then the key is to actively work on releasing those feelings of ill will, letting go of expectations you might have had, accepting that the outcome you wanted from the other person might just never materialize.
Acceptance.
And finally, reflecting on the outcomes of your forgiveness process, whether it involves reconciliation or simply moving on, that's a crucial part of your own healing journey.
Forgiveness sounds like a really powerful act of self-care, ultimately about freeing ourselves from being held captive by past hurts, allowing us to move forward with more peace. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about the different ways we experience and express love. The concept of love languages has become pretty common.
Ah, the 5 love languages.
Yes.
Words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. Very well. Mind explains this framework as offering a really useful way to understand the diverse ways people both express and experience love.
Right.
Author Gary Chapman proposed that each of us has a primary love language that resonates most deeply, makes us feel most truly loved and appreciated.
So, for example, someone whose main thing is words of affirmation feels most loved when they hear compliments, encouragement, appreciation.
Exactly.
Whereas someone whose language is quality time prioritizes that undivided attention, meaningful conversations, shared experiences.
Right. And then you have people who feel most loved through physical affection,
Mhm.
hugs, holding hands,
Physical touch.
those who value acts of service,
Yeah.
someone helping out with tasks, taking something off their plate,
Lots of service.
and those who appreciate thoughtful gifts as a symbol of love and care. Receiving gifts.
Okay.
Gaining an understanding of your partner's primary love language and them understanding yours, well, that can be incredibly helpful in making each other feel genuinely loved and appreciated.
Sounds useful.
However, Very Well Mind also points out some valid criticisms and potential pitfalls associated with the theory.
Such as, what should we keep in mind? Any cautions?
Well, one concern is that some people might misuse it, almost turning it into a rigid checklist, or a way to pressure their partners to express love in one specific way.
Like you didn't do enough acts of service this week.
Kind of, yeah. It's also important to remember that understanding love languages isn't some magic bullet that solves all relationship problems. Relying solely on this framework might create unrealistic expectations. Furthermore, the original model has faced some criticism for being a bit heteronormative, maybe oversimplifying the complexities of human emotion and connection.
Okay, so it's not perfect.
Right. But despite these criticisms, the fundamental idea understanding how your partner best receives and interprets expressions of love that remains a valuable communication tool. It can definitely facilitate deeper connection.
So the takeaway is,
The key takeaway is that regular, open communication about feeling loved and appreciated is always essential, regardless of whether you explicitly use the 5 love languages framework or not.
it sounds like it's less about rigidly categorizing people and more about using it as maybe a starting point for meaningful conversations about how we can best make each other feel loved and valued.
That's a great way to look at it, yes.
Okay. Finally, let's just briefly touch on a unique type of relationship that many people navigate. Long-distance relationships.
Right. As Mark Manson aptly puts it, long-distance relationships demand a really significant level of commitment and intentionality from both partners to have a realistic chance of success.
Takes serious effort.
It does. He highlights this somewhat counterintuitive aspect. The physical distance often necessitates making substantial life commitments, perhaps sooner or with less in-person data, compared to someone geographically closer.
It really underscores the vital importance of that clear communication we talked about, shared goals for the future, and a really strong sense of trust when you're navigating a relationship across miles.
Absolutely. The intentional effort to stay connected despite the distance becomes paramount.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, it's clear that healthy relationships are built on a really intricate web of factors. You need that strong foundation of trust, which is continuously nurtured through consistent, clear communication, that active listening, genuine empathy, willingness to truly understand.
Right.
Learning how to navigate conflict constructively, not avoiding it, is absolutely key. Managing emotions, compromising,
Vital skills.
respecting each other's individual boundaries is paramount for both personal well-being and relationship harmony. And while hurt is inevitable, that capacity for forgiveness for others, for ourselves, is crucial for healing.
Definitely.
Finally, understanding and appreciating how we and our partners best express and receive love, maybe through the lens of love languages, maybe just through talking about it, that can significantly deepen connection. And in unique situations like long distance, well, high commitment and a shared vision are essential.
And it's so important to remember, building and maintaining a healthy relationship isn't, one-time achievement. It's an ongoing process. It requires consistent effort, a deep sense of self-awareness, and perhaps most importantly, a genuine, continuous practice of empathy for your partner's unique experiences and perspectives.
So as you take a moment to reflect on all of this, maybe consider which of these elements resonates most strongly with you right now. What's one small but meaningful step you could consciously take today to strengthen the relationships in your life?
Good question.
Maybe it's initiating an open, honest conversation about a boundary. Maybe it's actively practicing your listening skills in your next chat, or simply taking some time to reflect on your own needs, how you express love. We really encourage you to continue exploring these concepts and engaging in that crucial, ongoing act of self-reflection. Thanks for taking this deep dive.